Welcome to Lesson 14, Create and Customize. We'll start by looking at full body morphs to change a figure's entire shape. We'll move on to the face room for changing the face and head shape, then look at the morphing tool to sculpt and brush any detail we imagine. We'll use the new control handles feature to click and drag facial expressions, and after that we'll check out the hair room for creating custom hair growth while using the grouping tool to define new geometry groups. We'll create realistic muscle bulges using magnet deformers, and finally explore inverse kinematics while posing our character. Alright everyone, let's create something special. Okay friends, here we are on the last video of the series. We've come a long way, but we're going to end on a big one and create something very cool here. Until now, we've mostly learned Poser by manipulating the vast library of pre-made characters and content. However, Poser is more than a content manipulation program. It is an extremely powerful content creation program, providing us the power to create and customize new characters in some pretty exciting ways. So what we're going to do is start with a completely pre-rigged human form, such as Paul, and we can completely transform Paul into a radically different character that's never been seen before. We will not even recognize Paul. And so it's really nice to be able to start with the basic human form, saving you 99% of the work, and you still have all the control to transform him into anything else you like. So let's go ahead and make sure you got Paul loaded from the library. We've already been here before, and I've just from Paul's clothing folder in the props library got some basic shorts on Paul. So let's go ahead and I've got Paul's body group selected, and you want to explore the full body morphs under the body parameters. Now, many of your Poser characters have full body morphs, and look at this. If we just crank the heavy dial up, it's affecting the entire body, and we have a heavier version of Paul. So right there, we have a very different character, and the rig still works great. He's just way heavier. We can also look at what the muscular full body morph looks like. Paul looking pretty ripped there now. Nice abs, Paul. And I'm just going to do a combination of some heavy and some muscular for a sort of heavy, girthy guy like that. There we go. I like that. Pretty unique. Now, you want to, again, explore your full body morphs for every character. We already know that there's morphs on a per object level. We've already seen the different character morphs for their heads. And so full body morphs just affect everything uniformly. It's pretty nice. Pauline has some very interesting full body morphs. You should check those out on your own, as well as the other characters. So what I want to do is create a Poser devil, a radically different fantasy mythological type character, and go ahead and base it off Paul. And so let's go ahead and start with that nice form for the body, and we want to start modifying the face and head shape of Paul. So we can do that by going to the face room. It's up here. Just click the face room tab. And we haven't been here before. It's a very unique room. It's very different. We don't have our usual tools anymore. They're all new. And on a basic level, we have our camera controls here. We have used these before, so we can just click and drag and bring the view out just a little bit. And we can also rotate around the head. And notice it's just the head. We can only make changes to Paul's face in here, but there's so much power and control. Right away, without doing anything special, we can just start clicking and dragging anywhere on Paul's face and create a different shape. And as you can see, it's pretty darn easy to do. Now you get some extreme stuff going on if you could push it too far, like here with the eyes. So you got to be a little bit careful. And the possibilities of the morph changes based on this clicking and dragging is different depending on which way you're looking at the character. From this angle, we can make the nose very deep. So we can do subtle changes like this, or very cartoony caricature changes like so. Really a lot of control here. You can just literally click on any part of the face that you like. So I'll just come back around this way, maybe work with the ears. Pretty cool, huh? Now what's happening here is all this clicking and dragging is simply modifying this complete set of facial morphs in these lists here. These are different from the morphs in Paul's head parameters. These are just unique to the face room, and you can have access to these morphs no matter which character that you bring into the face room. So let's go ahead, and what we can do is clear the morphs here that we've been playing with so far, and we can just keep playing with different ideas. And instead of clicking and dragging, we can actually one by one see what individual morphs look like. So for instance, I can affect the brow by clicking and dragging, but notice if I just use the individual brow morph, it's not affecting anything else on the face. So we have nice individual control like so. Let's just run through some of these real quick and see what we can do. Very different look there. And let's try, say, something with the eyes. We can move the eyes completely up and down and reposition them. Different types of look for the face. Now we got some sort of mafia looking guy, Fat Tony over here. And we just continue to play with all these different possibilities. What can we do with the mouth? Do some interesting stuff with the lips there. We can reposition the nose. Pretty cool what you can do here. And maybe reposition the ears like so. Totally different, very caricaturized fellow there. And I'm going to go ahead and just clear the morphs one more time. Start from scratch, and we got a new category here. Ethnicity, age, and gender. It's the same morph idea, but we can play with different ethnicities. There's an African version, a European version, very Nordic Viking look there, an Asian version of Paul, and an East Indian. So I'm just undoing these as I'm trying each one. And we've also got age. We can make Paul older or even younger. And there's also a gender. We can make Paul more feminine looking like so. So it's pretty awesome. Quite a bit of powerful control here in the face room. And next we've got this area here. This is where we can modify the texture. Now we're not looking at Paul's actual texture. We get this new texture template. It's much more simpler with a lot less detail. Now you could import your original texture using this button here. I'll let you experiment with that on your own. I'm just going to stick with this more simpler face room texture. Notice it's got this beard control. We can give Paul a 5 o'clock shadow. And I'll just keep undoing stuff as I try it. We can play with the color of the eye sockets. Kind of looks like Donald Trump right there. And here he went to zombie mode. All right, and eyebrows can be darkened up as well. And we've got some ethnicity, age, and gender texture controls here. So let's do something here. Let's go ahead and undo that again. Now notice we can do some interesting things here. I'm going to crank up the African face morph shape and dial up the African texture, which will make his skin more black, as you can see there. And look at this. That's a pretty cool African-American version of Paul there. Pretty awesome. So we can do a lot of stuff here, have a lot of fun playing with texture modifications and different combinations of the face shapes as well. Pretty cool. So we can, of course, clear the morphs, but when you make texture modifications and you want to reset everything, you'll want to do the reset face room, and it'll reset everything, the morphs and your texture modifications as well. So pretty awesome. And we also have this other area here called photo lineup. This is pretty cool. You can actually import a front photo of any face and a side photo, and using all the tools here, you can align those to the face and even make modifications to the shape of the face here based on the photo that you import. And you can create a 3D version of yourself or caricatures like, I don't know, politicians and celebrities, that kind of thing, if you can get some good front and side profile pictures. So I'll let you look into this feature. It takes a bit of time to get that going, and I'd rather keep this face room lesson here a little bit more simpler. So know about this though, it's pretty powerful. And we looked at, I'm going to back my camera out again. We've looked at clicking and dragging, dialing up individual morphs, but what we can do is take advantage of this random face button here, and if you click it, it's just going to generate a random assortment of morph dial modifications as well as some texture modifications. And it's always going to be different. You'll never get the same one twice. And if you just keep clicking, Poser will just generate random characters one by one. So if you need to fill your scene with 20 characters, well, this is one way to do it. You can just have 20 different versions of Paul or any other Poser character. And it's a nice and easy way of just, within a couple minutes, With just, look, one click, you got a different character, and you can just set up a town in probably under 10 minutes. Pretty cool stuff here. So what I want to do is just toggle through some of these faces. And if I want to find something, again, remember, we're going to create a poser devil based off Paul. So I want to find a sort of girthy, mean-looking face. There we go. See how we've already got this big upper skull shape with the brows there? I think this will be a good starting place. Nice, sinister look on this fella here. Now, we're not going to use the texture. However, if you wanted to apply your texture and face shapes, you could simply press Apply to Figure, and your shape and your texture will be permanently affixed to Paul, and you won't be able to change it. If you want to just apply the shape permanently, you use this button here, and if you just want to apply the texture modifications, you use that button there. But what I want to do is just take the shape, but I want to apply it as a morph target right here, which allows me to turn this shape off or on and dial up a scaled version of that morph target as well. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to just spawn the morph target by pressing there. Go back to the pose room, and let's go ahead and get into the face camera, Command or Control plus, and watch this. With the head selected, you'll now notice you have another morph. This is what we just created, head. And if you just start clicking and dragging it up, there's that shape that we created. And you can even go beyond the value of 1 that we created, or go with the lesser value, something a little bit more subtle. So I'm just going to hit 1. A value of 1 is exactly what we created in the face room. And so there we go. Let me just get back to the main camera. And as you can see, this is no longer looking like Paul whatsoever. And because we went with a random face generation, no one else has ever had this character ever. So it is definitely a unique creation, all from within Poser with just a few clicks. So I'm going to get back to the face camera, and I want to show you another awesome tool, one of the coolest features in Poser actually, and it's in our tool palette. It's this morphing tool. It looks like a little finger pointing. Click on there, and you get a brand new tool setting pop-up window here for the morphing tool. Now, it's pretty amazing what we have with this tool. There's 2 ways to use it, create or combine. If you use the combine tab, well, it's similar to the face room. We can basically just start clicking and dragging anywhere on the face, and you see that it's basically dialing in variations of all the different morphs that come with Paul. So we could grab his nose, his ears. It's definitely useful, but I actually want to come to the Create tab because this is where this tool really rocks. And in the Create mode here for the morphing tool, it's very much like any other sculpting program like ZBrush, Modo, any sculpting program you've used. Now, definitely a lot simpler because it's just a tool here inside Poser, but we can basically sculpt and shape and carve in detail in our character's face. You can see if you hover over your character's face, you got this awesome display of your brush, like so, and we can adjust our brush size. Here, we've got the basically fall off of our brush. If we want a soft brush or a hard brush, we can adjust the radius of our brush. Let me just get my brush back in there. If I dial this radius up, you can see so much control. And if I change it to a hard brush, watch the fall off pattern change. And if I go back to a soft brush, I have a nice fall off between the red, off to the yellow, and into the green. And your magnitude is basically the strength of your brush. So very easy. These 3 settings here control basically the behavior of your brush. And you've got different ways of using the brush. You can push polygons in, you can pull them out, you can flatten, you can smooth, and you can also restore and undo your changes by painting back over them. There's also some interesting features here for clothing, working with clothing to tighten, loosen, and sag. And that's about it. You should definitely check out the reference manual to get the full read on all these settings and how much they'll impact your work. So let's go ahead and we're just going to use the pool setting here for our action. And let's start carving up some devilish detail here on Paul. One thing I want to do right away is give him some devilish ears. And so I'm going to dial down the radius just so that I affect, say, the tip of that ear. I think that's pretty good. And we have that nice fall off, so all the power will be concentrated on red and get weaker towards the green. And for magnitude, I should probably dial that down to 0.1 to start with, because 0.5 is a bit powerful. Now, the other thing you want to be conscious of is the relativity of your tool. Is it relative to the surface, the screen, or in and out? Now, based on the surface, it will basically pull out the polygons based on the plane of that surface. So for instance, on the forehead, it would come out from that forehead perpendicular to the plane of that surface. With a multi-dimensional surface situation going on with the ear, that's going to be very unpredictable, and you're going to be much better off with screen mode, because basically wherever our mouse is pulling the polygons, that's what's going to happen. So it's a lot more predictable with something like the ear. But when you're working with flatter surfaces like, say, the skull or arms, surface mode can be very handy. So let's just go ahead and start pulling on this ear. And you can see I can pull it in many different directions there. And we're creating our own sort of elfish, devilish ear here. And if I come back this way, I can, based on this camera view, I can now pull the ears even back a little bit like so. So I've got a lot of control here. I'll pull it up. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Awesome. And I think I'll even pull the lobe down a bit. I'm going to adjust my radius. It's at 0.0098, so let me just click on 0.005, and I got a much smaller region. I'm just going to pull down, maybe actually get a bigger radius there. 0.007. There we go, perfect. And I just want to bring the lobe down a bit. There we go, looking great. Now what you can do is see exactly what you're doing. If we change our display mode, there's this brand new display mode called texture lined. It's the very last one. So we have our full texture, plus we can see the polygons. As you can see, you got a real great understanding of exactly what you're doing there. So I think I'm just going to pull the ear up a little bit more to make it nice and sharp. And maybe tuck in this part of the lobe a little bit. Get a nice sharp lobe there. Perfect. Now what you can also do is use the smooth tool, because when you start pulling polygons around, sometimes the geometry gets a little bit messy. Don't worry about that. Just start pulling polygons, because you can always just use the smooth tool and watch this. Start smoothing your polygons out like so. Most of our detail was kept there, but the polygonal arrangement is a lot more organized with a nice even layout of your polygons. So I'll just smooth the lobe out a bit, and things are a lot cleaner there. Okay, great. I really like that. Let me just see what it looks like from the back. And I think I'm going to do one more thing. Back to the pull tool, and let's just increase it back to 0.008, maybe a hair bigger. I'm going to bring the middle of that ear in like so. Perfect. Beautiful shape for the ear now. Exactly what I want. Okay, awesome. Let's go ahead and give this guy some devil horns. So for this one, we got a nice concentration of polygons right here. Now with Poser Pro, we can actually subdivide this figure to get a higher count of polygons, but we got enough here. There's quite a lot here that we have to work with. So I think first I'm going to increase my radius to 0.01. Now it's very important the camera angle that you're pulling from if you're in screen mode. And right around this area here, I'm just going to start clicking and dragging and pulling out to create a nice devil horn. Beautiful. And if you run out of space on your mouse or your monitor, if you're using a pen like me, you can just release and come back in and just click some more. And don't worry about how dirty things look. We can actually smooth this out later. Okay, this is looking exactly like what I wanted to work with here. Nice and devilish. And so the next thing is we'll use our smooth tool here and just start smoothing this out a bit. And if you click and drag through that horn, it'll more evenly distribute some polygons for you. There we go. You can see how things are getting a lot more smoother. And as it turns out, it's even sharpening the horn, which is exactly what I wanted. And we're looking dead on of what I wanted to do there. That is sweet. Now, let me show you a great feature here. If you go here, you've got some more options at the bottom. Under mirror, we can just do a symmetry command so that we don't have to do this again on the left side. Watch this. If you just select Paul left or right, bam, just like magic. Look at that. That's pretty awesome here. And now we've got perfect symmetry, absolutely perfect. Nice devilish features there. Okay, now if we wanted, we could carve in fine details with a much smaller radius. There's really unlimited control here with this nice sculpting and morphing functionality here with this wonderful tool. Let's go ahead and get out of here now and look at this. What we're doing is creating a custom morph right here. So when we exit out of here, now we've got two morphs we created. We created the head morph that came from the face room, and we created this custom morph that came from the morphing tool. And if you dial this down, you can see there that you can have a lower version of that morph that we created. And if we go past a value of 1, we get an even stronger amount of that change that we just did. So that is looking pretty cool. I like it even stronger, a little bit past the value of 1 there, and he's looking awesome. Now let's go ahead and do a few more things here. I want to go and explore his head shapes right here under head shaping. And we can also get back to our texture shaded mode under our display style. And we need to make him looking even meaner yet. And we're going to go ahead and go under brow and forehead. Actually, let's start with expression way up top. Let's see what we got here. We got anger. So let's do a little bit of anger and see what brow's angry does. See how helpful that is? And let's see what disgust does. Oh yeah, that looks pretty good. But maybe he's a happy devil. So we'll put a little bit of joy in there with disgust. There we go. And, layering things like this is how you get cinematic with your shot. I still don't think he's sinister enough. He looks like a teenage devil. He's just too innocent looking. So let's just keep taking it further. Brow and forehead. We got some nice brow wrinkles with that control there. A lot of beautiful detail. We could have carved that using the morphing tool, but, it's always good to explore stuff that's already been done for you. Brow wrinkles, some even more detail up there in the head. Now let's just continue looking through the list here. Let's go under chin. Chin cleft. Why not, I guess. And let's check out nose. All right, this nasolabial fold, I really like the detail that brings in around the mouth there. That's pretty cool. That would have been pretty simple to do in the morphing tool, but hey, it's here, so let's use it. All right, and he's looking pretty great there. So I think between the face room, the morphing tool, and the built-in head parameters, we're in a pretty good direction here. Let's take it further. I want to show you something here. Let's go to the pose folder here, and if we go under people, go under Paul. Now, he doesn't have any custom poses yet, but under face controls, you notice when we hover over Pauline and Paul, there's this brand new feature called control handles. So these new characters, well, you can click on, say, the chin chip there, that control handle, and just start moving the face around by intuitively clicking and dragging. Well, if we click on control handles edge display under the face control utility pose, I'm going to double click on it, and now it activates a full display, so we don't have to hover. We can always see the possibilities of what we can do with the face. And I do want to play with the face here. First of all, I want to take the nose and make it more sinister by flaring up the nostrils like that. What a big difference that makes. And I'm also going to grab the nose tip, see what I can do with it. I'm going to select it, and we can also experiment with the parameters. Slide that out. Bring it down. It's definitely a lot better. Cool. And let's do something here with the lips here. We can get a lot of power going here, making those lips curl like that. And I'll show you a nice thing that I found out here. If I grab this front bottom lip control handle, and then scale it up, we get thicker lips like that. Pretty cool. And we can do the same with the upper lip. Just select that control handle, scale your lip up. And then do the side ones as well. There we go. And between creating stuff from scratch and playing with what's built in, we're starting to get a completely original creation here for our character. There we go. Awesome. So now that I'm happy with what we've done here, we've got lots of brow control as well. Maybe bring that brow down even more. There we go, even more sinister. So now that we're good with that, we can turn these control handles back off with the utility pose, and I don't want to hide them in case we want to use them later. I'm just going to go back to the default control handles hover display, and now we can still see them if we hover over them. So pretty cool there. I mean, that does not even look like Paul anymore. The devil's in the details, as they say, huh? Okay, great. He's looking awesome. What about his texture? We need to make him red. So let's go to Material Room, and we can transform him into a true devil right away. With our Material Select tool, I'm just going to go ahead and select on Paul's face, and it looks like Paul is having his color from a texture map. There's his face, and it's being piped into a subsurface scattering node, and then into the alternative diffuse. So we can adjust his overall color, but keep the texture detail by just changing the color here, or even in the alternate diffuse. I'm going to go ahead and click on alternate diffuse. And of course, we want a red devil, so I'm going to pick a deep, medium, deep red, somewhere around right here. Okay, look at that big transformation. So we got the red color with all the texture detail. Pretty amazing. Now, next thing we can do is we want to copy this to the rest of the body. I'm going to go to the main camera, and I'm going to copy this color. I'm going to go in here and save it. If I click this little button switch here, I get this new color tab. We got color swatches, another way to access color here. And if I just select Add to Custom Colors, you can see it saved my red right there. And so I'm just going to go through one at a time, selecting the different body material groups for Paul, and apply that red color by going back into the custom color box, selecting that red, and I've got the same exact shade of red. One by one, saving us a lot of work. One last group, I believe. Bam, done. Material room. So powerful. Let's get back to the pose room. And there he is. This was Paul just a few minutes ago. Completely different character. Now, with that full body morph that we did, the shorts look a little too big. I'm going to select the waist of the shorts, come to the parameters and just scale them down so that the sides of the waist now fit, but the Z-axis scale is now too short, not accommodating that belly he's got. So we can just dial up the Z scale on the shorts, and now we're pretty perfect right there. Shorts fit perfect, great. And you know what? Let's get back to the material room and actually just make those black. And I'm just going to grab the, looks like the shorts pipe into this channel here, and I can just pick a nice black color there. There we go, perfectly black. And maybe select the button as well and make that black. Okay, much more sinister with the black shorts. Now the next thing that we want to do is give him a nice devilish goatee. He still looks too innocent without any hair. So let's get some hair on Paul and enter the hair room right here next to face room. And you want to make sure that you got Paul's head selected. And I'm going to enter the face camera. And we got many of our usual tools, but we've also got special hair tools on the right here, as you could see. Read the poser reference manual to get the full gist of all the controls here. But very quickly, we're going to show you how you can throw some hair on your characters. So you want to hit New Growth Group. And I'm just going to enter in Devil Hair. Okay, so now I have a growth group, but I need to edit it right here next to create the polygons for that hair to grow out of. So I'm going to hit Edit Growth Group. And you notice what happens here is this grouping tool pops up, the group editing tool. Now it's always been here in our tool palette no matter what room you're in, and it's very powerful. You can create groups for many things. For starters, your character is rigged based off of polygon geometry groups. That's why the head bends differently than the neck or the hand and the arm. And you could make changes to your geometry groups, create new ones. You can use this in conjunction with the setup room to rig objects or characters any way you like. You can also group materials. That's how our material groups are all put together through the grouping tool as well. Now, you can also create special hair groups. These are basically polygon groups just so that we can use them for growing hair. And so we got our devil hair group, and because we have the face selected, next thing I want to do is change my display mode to the hidden line right here. And now all I've got is this nice grayed out polygon view. And we got this plus symbol activated for selection. All we have to do is start clicking and dragging to add polygons based off of the head group that will go into a new devil hair group. And you got different ways of adding. You got the marquee selection and the draw. So you could draw polygons like so, one at a time, to get a real detailed goatee kind of thing going on. There we go. And we can go back to marquee, and if we come to the side, we can even draw a selection like so, and add polygons however we like. All right, this is a pretty simple hair group we're creating. I'm just going to go back to the draw tool and maybe try and make it a bit symmetrical. There we go. And we can always remove polygons as well, like so, as you can see there. I'll hit the plus symbol and repaint those that I want. Okay, I think we got fairly close enough symmetry there. That'll work. Good enough. Not perfect, but good enough. I'll get out of the grouping tool and back to my texture shaded mode. So we've got the edit growth group dialed in, and now all we have to do is just hit the button grow guide hairs. And it just did it just like that. Out of those polygons, we've got hair growing here. Some real interesting stuff we can do. We're not going to do that in this video, but you can utilize bullet physics to calculate wind and gravity to create nice animation effects for the hair. And you can do that bullet physics for several things inside Poser. But we can just basically stylize this hair real quickly. First thing I'm going to do is just pull it down. There we go. Maybe even pull it back a little bit. Pull it down some more. Actually, I don't want this chin area to be pulled down too much. There we go. Something like that. And I'm going to come around to the front. And show populated, I'm going to select that, and we get a more actual depiction of what hairs are going on there. And I'm going to increase the hair count to like 2,000. Okay, and what we can then do is you got these multiple controls. You can make things very kinky and dial up the kink scale, delay, and strength. As you can see there, instead of things being perfectly straight, it's now got some kink to it. You can make things clumpy as well. You can define the root width, the tip width, lots of control here. You definitely want to read up on the full control. Now, in addition to generally making changes with the sliders, if we go into style hairs here, we get this box right here to style as many hairs as we want. So right away we can create a selection. I'm actually going to select all the bottom control points for all the hairs. We can do lots of things here. We can move them around with the translate tool. With that selection, I can move the hairs around. And I can, again, base my selection. I can deselect polygons that I've already selected to have a nice control over the group. And again, I'm just going to select them all. And we can also twist them like so. So you got a lot of control here. What I'm going to do, a nice little trick, is to just scale them down using the scale tool based off that selection. And that'll give us that nice goatee effect like so. That's pretty good. And we can also maybe move them up a bit. Perfect. I think we're looking pretty good. And we can also adjust the length, as you can see there. All right. Now, let's get out of here. I think that does it. As you can see, you could create hair pretty easily, full hairdos, and this is strand-based hair. It's very different than the prop hair we've been working with. As you can see, it's not using an image map to flat polygons. This is more like our real hair, real strands of hair. And you can definitely get some cool effects using the bullet physics stimulation. Let's get back to the pose room. And you could definitely render this out. If we go to the material room real quick, select on the hair, you can see it's already set up a hair node here, and we can adjust the color. So this is going to render out blonde. So if you're going to render this, you want to make sure you change your colors to what you want the colors to be. You got control over the root to the tip and everything there. So just be aware of that. So he's definitely looking more devilish with that goatee. Now we could have dialed it in to be a lot more realistic, but I think that's going to work for now. And let's go ahead and get back to the main camera. And let's finish off getting him into a nice devilish pose. I'm going to go to the poses and just exit out of people. And under universal poses, action comic book, this hero pose 2 is pretty cool. I loaded that. I just made a few modifications to the hands and I saved it out. So I'm just going to apply that to the devil. There we go. It's really coming together now. And the next thing I want to do, you can see I modified the fist shape there. And under props, we've been here before, weapons, there's some swords. I loaded the demoniac sword, which looks and sounds appropriate. Now what I did actually is I positioned it in the devil's hand, and I also parented it to the hand. So when you position and then parent something to a character, and then you save it back out to the library, you have the option to save it as a smart prop. So then when you load it back up, watch what happens. I'll just click and drag it onto the character. Doesn't matter where. And because I saved it as a smart prop, it automatically repositioned it for me, and it also parented it, as you can see, so it's totally ready to go. So real cool feature there, and he's coming together pretty nicely here. Now one more thing that we can do, if I get back to the face camera real quick, and if I select the head, there's some eye controls here that are pretty cool. You can adjust the iris size, and you can dilate the pupils. And you've even got this slit pupils control here. Now he's devilish. Perfect. Definitely more devilish. Back to the main camera. And I'm actually going to go to the pose camera, Command or Control, comma. That way we're very perfectly centered around our character, and the character's following us. I want to make some more changes here to the character, and I love the musculature form, but I want to create some muscle bulging in the biceps that's much more pronounced than what we got going on. You can do custom muscle bulges and create some really interesting muscular behavior, really anything that you can think of. You're not just limited to the built-in full body morphs or individual body part morphs. So select the body part that you want to bulge, and we can come up to Object, come down to Create Magnet. This is pretty awesome. Now the magnets only have 3 parts to them. I'm going to start with the base and select the M for Manipulator tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and basically position it so that I can wrap my head around how it's going to affect the form of the bicep. And there we go. Something like that. Now, just so you can see what's going on here, I'm going to go to the outline mode. And you can see it's got the base there, a horizontal bar, and it's got the magnet shape. Back to the texture shaded display, and it's got this ring. That's the fall off zone. And you want to play with all 3 elements, the magnet, the base, and the fall off zone, by just clicking on them. And you can just change your display mode to see what's going on there. Now we could bring the magnet up here. I'm going to leave it inside because I think it's going to be much better. And what we can do is it's already attached. If we select the magnet and start scaling it up, look what's going on. We're getting some bulge. And you can apply a magnet to any part of your character. Now, also, if you select the translate tool, you can move the magnet up and down and around. You can rotate it. You can do anything. And look, we got some beautiful bulging here. So the magnet controls the intensity, but the circle ring here, the fall-off zone, that increases how much of the area that it affects. So if I select that ring and scale it down, you can see I can affect a smaller region of the bicep or go real big. So something like that seems pretty logical right there. There we go. And once we got that fall-off zone, we can go back to the magnet and just adjust back and forth. And we can see what it looks like around the back. And it looks like we're looking a little too powerful around the back. So what we can do actually is take our magnet and shift it that way. There we go. Now things are going to be a little bit more uniform. And we might be too powerful, but we can also play with not only the magnet, but the fall-off zone as well. And perhaps it's just a tad too powerful. There we go. That's good. I think that's perfect, actually. So this is pretty awesome what we can do with these guys here. As you can see, much more effective creating the muscle bulge there, and it just looks way more realistic. And we can go ahead and do the other side as well. Select that forearm. Go up to Object, Create Magnet. And this one will be a little bit easier. Just going to do the same thing, rotate it around so I got a better view of it. And if I select the other arm, select its magnet, and just Command or Control C to copy, I can paste those values to the other magnet just like that. Command or Control V. And we're pretty darn close. We would just have to modify the zone. Maybe do a few touch-ups there. And I think that's pretty darn good. He's looking awesome. So easy to do muscle bulges here, as you can see. Now, I want to show you some other cool things we can do. We can actually animate this muscle bulging as well. And so let's go ahead and change our frame count from 30 to 60. And go to the end frame. So now I'm on 60 of 60. And watch this. I'm going to go ahead and just bring this arm up. At the same time, I'm going to select the hand, dial up the grasp just a tad like that, just to make it nice and cinematic. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other arm, bring it up. And now, select the arms themselves. Now, we got the full bulging on at frame 60. Go back to the first frame. So now that we're back on frame 1, select the actual arm part. And you see you got now a morph mag 1 for that arm. Well, let's do something here. Let's take that to 0. And it basically zeroes out that bulge. You can even dial it up for even more dramatic effect if you like. So we're going to stick it to 0 there. Select the other arm and its mag 2 value to 0. Go back to the end frame. And mag 2, it looks like we'll need to make that go up to 1. And the other arm is already there. And so now look, if we play our animation, look at that. Realistic animated muscle bulges. Very simple to do, as you could see, and you could do this with all the body parts. I just love, love, love stuff like this. And we're creating something pretty darn awesome. Now, while we're posing about, I want to show you something here. If we go back to the end frame, and we haven't talked about this yet, we definitely need to cover it. So I'm going to come to the main camera and zoom out. And I actually need to select the main camera using any of these controls here. Go to the properties and just turn animation off. Since we're now on animation, I don't want some crazy camera things happening. Now, in our first intro to poser video, we experimented with grabbing the hips. Let me just rotate my camera a bit. And when we drop the character, the feet stay planted to the ground while the knees bend. It's pretty awesome to have this control. Now, this is not automatic. This is a special relationship between the character's body parts and the ground. And we're trying to, with the character rigs, simulate what our real life situation is like. If you drop your hips, your feet stay to the ground. And that's the relationship between your hips, your feet, the ground, and gravity. This process that makes the characters do this is called inverse kinematics. In short, it's referred to as IK. And that's what allows that activity to take place. Now, you can see that the hands behave differently than the feet do. Well, let's take a look at how this is being used. If you go to Figure, use inverse kinematics, we can see IK is turned on for the left leg and right leg. Let's turn it off real quick just to see the difference. And now, grab the hips, and look, it's a very different experience. It's as if we're moving the body group, even though we're moving the hips. The feet no longer have this special behavior that was built in with IK. And so you can see just how effective IK is at creating this natural motion with the rig for the character. And so if I grab now the character's leg or something and move it, you can see it's more like the hand now. It's just freely moving about. This might be useful to have IK off if you have a character suspended in water or the air. You might need it to be off to help you pose things a little bit better. And so if we want to turn it back on, we can go back up to the figure menu or just right-click in the scene over your character, and we got the same access to the IK right here. I'm going to turn it back on for the legs, one by one, and now the IK is back on. IK is absolutely essential for character animation to make them walk so that the feet stay in place one at a time while you're moving forward. And it's very helpful for poses. Let's go look at what we can use IK for the hands. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on for the right arm holding that sword. And now watch this. If I come up here, and now the hand is going to stay in place just like the feet if I move the rest of the body. And so I'm just going to use the T for translate tool. I'm going to pull that shoulder this way. And look at that. Pretty cool, huh? You get some interesting ways of posing your character, and this hand totally stayed in place. So if you have a hand that you want to stay in place, such as on something that you took a lot of time to pose out, or say driving a car and you want the hand to stay on the wheel while you pose out the rest of the body, you can do your hand pose, and then you can basically pose the character around the hand if the hand is that important. So pretty cool stuff that you can do there with IK. Now, the next thing I want to show you real quick is figure height. And if we go up to figure with our poser Paul the Devil selected, right here is figure height. It looks like Paul by default is with ideal adult. Watch what happens if I take it down to child. This is pretty hilarious. Now we got this tiny little pipsqueak of a devil. And so it's pretty awesome. Let me go to my pose camera, Command or Control, comma. A little bit easier to get around the character. Very, very, very different type of character here. So just playing with your figure height can make a big difference in the type of character that you're working with. You can do some funny stuff with this. Let's go back to ideal adult. And I'm just going to zoom out here. Get back to the main camera. And if I go back to figure height, if I go from my ideal adult to fashion model, you see there's a big difference. The chest is more puffed out, especially side to side. We get this wingspan here. And the abdomen is much thinner. So you can play with figure heights and get some different types of character masses going on there. So look what we've got here. How awesome. A totally unique character creation. How cool is that? Well, friends, we've learned a lot. We've barely grazed the surface of what's possible using Poser. However, I highly encourage you to browse the Poser reference manual to fully delve into what we've learned and check out the Poser product website and discover many of the other features we just didn't have time to go into. Poser is packed with plenty of advanced features like bullet physics for real-time simulations of hair, cloth, props, and figures. You can also rig your own characters and props, swap and fit clothing between characters, and if you check out Poser Pro, there are even more exciting features to behold. Look for more advanced tutorials coming soon, as well as other Poser content available now. So have fun with it, create some wonderful artwork, and remember, the only limit is your imagination. I hope you've learned a lot. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and keep on posing.